Not long ago, British tables looked shockingly different. Foods that defined childhoods, filled Sunday roasts, and packed school lunchboxes have simply vanished. Some disappeared because tastes changed, others because the world moved on. Let's count down 20 British foods from the 1950s and 60s that you'll never see again, starting with number 1.
Number 1. Spam fritters.
Picture this. Friday tea time, 1960. Your mum pulls a tin of Spam from the larder, slices it thick, dips it in batter, and fries it until golden. The whole street smells like hot oil and processed pork. For millions of British families, Spam fritters weren't just food, they were tradition. During rationing, Spam became a hero, American tinned meat that filled bellies when nothing else could. Even after rationing ended in 1954, families kept eating it. It was cheap, reliable, and actually quite tasty when you fried it properly. Some chip shops even sold them alongside your cod and chips. But somewhere between the 1970s and 80s, Spam fritters started disappearing. Pizza arrived, curry houses opened, foreign holidays showed Brits there was more to life than tinned meat in batter. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find a chip shop serving Spam fritters. They've become a punchline, a nostalgic joke. Yet for those who grew up eating them, they were simply Friday night. The tins of Spam still exist, gathering dust on supermarket shelves next to the corned beef. But the fritter? That golden, crispy slice of post-war Britain? Gone. Vanished like rationing itself.
Number 2. Tinned fruit cocktail.
Open any British kitchen cupboard in 1958 and you'd find it. Rows of tins with cheerful labels showing chunks of pineapple, cherries, and mysterious orange cubes swimming in syrup. Fruit cocktail wasn't just pudding, it was sophistication in a tin. Families served it at Sunday tea, sometimes with a dollop of evaporated milk, other times with tinned cream, if they were feeling posh. The tinned cherry on top was a prize worth fighting your siblings over. Kids learned early that life wasn't fair when someone else got the cherry. Post-war Britain didn't have fresh pineapples in every Tesco. Exotic fruit meant tinned fruit. Opening a tin of fruit cocktail felt like bringing the tropics to Blackpool. It was affordable luxury, sweetness after years of doing without. But fresh fruit became cheaper. Supermarkets started stocking actual pineapple, real mangoes. The fruit cocktail tin started looking a bit sad, a bit desperate. By the 1980s, serving tinned fruit cocktail at a dinner party would have raised eyebrows. Today, you'd be lucky to find it even in the tinned aisle. Yet there's something deeply British about that tin. The optimism of it, the idea that chunks of unidentifiable fruit in heavy syrup counted as exotic. It's a snapshot of a Britain that's completely vanished.
Number 3. Brawn, or pork cheese.
Here's where things get properly old school. Brawn, or pork cheese as some called it, was jellied meat made from a pig's head. Yes, you heard that correctly. A pig's entire head, boiled down until the meat fell off, then set in its own natural jelly. Your nan probably kept some in the larder. She'd slice it thin, serve it with pickled onions and crusty bread. It was proper working class food, using every part of the animal because wasting anything would have been sinful. The jelly wobbled, the meat had texture, and the taste, well, let's just say it was an acquired one. In the 1950s and 60s, brawn wasn't unusual. Butchers made it fresh, families bought it regularly. It filled sandwiches, appeared at buffets, and nobody batted an eye at eating jellied pig's head. Different times. But modern Britain has gone squeamish. We want our meat pre-packaged, anonymous, unrecognizable from the animal it came from. The idea of eating something called pig's head cheese makes people uncomfortable now. Butchers stopped making it. Supermarkets never stocked it. And an entire generation grew up never knowing what brawn was. Today, you might find it in some traditional butchers, the kind run by old blokes who remember when men wore hats. But for the most part, brawn has joined the list of British foods that make younger people pull faces. It's a relic, a reminder that our grandparents ate things we can barely imagine.
Number 4. Jellied eels.
East London, 1955. Pie and mash shops are packed with workers, and alongside the pies sits a bowl of something that would make most modern Brits recoil. Jellied eels. Chunks of eel in their own aspic jelly, served cold, eaten with a spoon. Tim's eels were cheap, plentiful and nutritious. Cockney families ate them like other people ate fish and chips. You'd buy them from street vendors, eaten standing up, and the jelly would stick to your fingers. It was proper London food, born from the river and the working docks. The preparation was simple, but specific. Eels were chopped, boiled with herbs and spices, then left to cool. Their natural gelatin set into that characteristic jelly. Some added vinegar, others ate them plain, but everyone agreed they were an acquired taste. As London changed, so did taste. The Thames cleaned up, but ironically, people stopped wanting its eels. Pie and mash shops closed or stopped serving jellied eels. Foreign food arrived: pizza, curry, kebabs. Suddenly, jellied eels seemed old-fashioned, a bit grim. Today, a handful of traditional pie and mash shops still serve them. Tourists try them once for Instagram, but as everyday food, dead as the eels themselves. An entire generation of Londoners has grown up never tasting the food their great-grandparents ate weekly.
Number 5. Bread and dripper.
Saturday morning, 1960. Your mom's just finished the Sunday roast prep, and sitting in a bowl is something magical, dripping. The fat and juices from yesterday's beef, cooled and set to something spreadable, rich, and absolutely delicious. You'd take a thick slice of white bread, spread it with cold dripping, sprinkle some salt on top, and that was your snack sorted. Sometimes you'd get the jelly from the bottom, the dark, concentrated meat juice that tasted of everything good about Sunday dinner. Kids today have no idea what they're missing. Dripping wasn't just tasty, it was economical. Nothing went to waste. Every bit of fat from the roast got saved, stored in a bowl in the larder, ready to transform cheap bread into something satisfying. Working families lived on this stuff. It kept you going through a morning's work. But health advice changed. Fast became the enemy. Doctors started warning about cholesterol. Suddenly, spreading beef fat on bread seemed less like good housekeeping and more like slow suicide. Margarine manufacturers had a field day. Heart healthy became the watchword. Dripping became old-fashioned. Today, you'd struggle to find dripping in any supermarket. Butchers might give you some if you ask nicely, but most people wouldn't know what to do with it. The idea of eating pure animal fat on bread horrifies the modern health-conscious mind. Yet an entire generation grew up strong and healthy, eating it every Saturday morning.
Number 6. Condensed milk sandwiches.
This one sounds made up, but it absolutely isn't. During the 1950s and 60s, when money was tight and treats were rare, kids made sandwiches out of condensed milk. White bread, thick layer of sweet, sticky condensed milk pressed together, pure sugar and carbohydrates. Dentists must have loved it. The appeal was obvious. Condensed milk was shelf-stable, lasted forever, and tasted like liquid toffee. A tin in the cupboard meant instant sweetness whenever you wanted it. Pour it on bread, and you had dessert for pennies. Some kids even ate it straight from the tin when their moms weren't looking. Schools saw these sandwiches and packed lunches regularly. Teachers didn't bat an eye. This was normal. Some families couldn't afford proper puddings or biscuits, but everyone could manage a tin of condensed milk. It democratized sweetness, gave every kid access to something nice. But nutrition science marched on. The 1970s brought awareness of sugar's dangers. Processed foods fell out of favor, and the sheer oddness of a condensed milk sandwich started seeming less like clever thrift and more like child neglect. Health visitors would have had words. Today, condensed milk still exists. It goes in cakes, in coffee for those who like it Vietnamese style, but as a sandwich filling? Absolutely not. The very idea makes people uncomfortable. Yet thousands of now elderly Brits remember those sandwiches with genuine fondness. Sweet, simple, and utterly of their time.
Number 7. Tripe and onions.
Fair warning, this one's not for the faint-hearted. Tripe is cow's stomach lining, and in the 1950s and 60s, it was standard British fare. Boiled until tender, served with onions in a white sauce, eaten at tea time like it was completely normal. Which, at the time, it was. Northern industrial towns especially loved their tripe. Manchester had dedicated tripe shops. You'd buy it ready prepared, take it home, and cook it up. The texture was distinctive, somewhere between chewy and slimy. The taste was mild, mostly taking flavor from whatever sauce you served it with. People either loved it or tolerated it. Preparation was crucial. Tripe needed proper cleaning and long, slow cooking. Done wrong, it was inedible. Done right, it was a cheap source of protein that filled hungry working men. Some people swore by it. Others choked it down because it was what you could afford. As prosperity arrived, tripe disappeared fast. Given the choice between cow's stomach and proper steak, people chose steak every time. Younger generations refused point blank to eat it. Tripe shops closed, butchers stopped stocking it, and an entire tradition vanished within a generation. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find tripe anywhere outside specialist butchers or ethnic food shops. The thought of eating stomach lining makes most modern Brits queasy. Yet it was standard fare for millions, keeping families fed when times were hard.
Number 8. Faggots and peas.
Before you snigger at the name, understand that faggots were serious business. Meatballs made from pork offal, liver, and breadcrumbs, wrapped in caul fat, then baked in rich gravy. Served with mushy peas and mashed potato, they were proper comfort food. The name comes from the Old English for bundle, nothing else. But as language evolved and the word gained other meanings, faggots became increasingly difficult to talk about without embarrassment. School dinners serving faggots became the subject of endless jokes. Marketing became impossible. In the 1950s and 60s, though, faggots were everywhere. Mr. Brain's faggots became a household name. You could buy them tinned or fresh from the butcher. They were working-class staple food. Cheap protein that tasted better than it had any right to. The taste? Rich, slightly livery, intensely savory. The texture? Soft, almost crumbly, held together by that caul fat wrapping. Paired with peas and mash, they made a meal that kept you going through a shift at the factory. No-nonsense food for no-nonsense people. But offal fell out of fashion. People got squeamish about eating organs. The name became problematic. And slowly, faggots disappeared from dinner tables. You can still find them, particularly in the Midlands and Wales, but they're a shadow of their former glory, a food your grandparents remember, but your children have never tried.
Number 9. Meat paste sandwiches.
Every 1960s school lunchbox contained at least one kid with meat paste sandwiches, small glass jars of Ship'ems or Princes containing what can only be described as brown mystery spread, chicken and ham paste, beef paste, salmon and shrimp paste, all tasting vaguely similar and not quite like their named ingredients. The appeal was convenience and shelf life. These jars sat in cupboards for months, always ready when you needed a quick sandwich. Spread it thin on buttered white bread, cut the crusts off if you were posh, and you had lunch. It wasn't gourmet, but it filled a hole. The texture was smooth, almost mousse-like. The taste was salty, vaguely meaty, and remarkably uniform regardless of the variety. You could blindfold someone and they'd struggle to tell chicken paste from beef paste, but that didn't matter. It was protein, it was cheap, and it lasted forever. As fresh food became more available and affordable, meat paste seemed increasingly sad. Why eat mystery spread when you could have actual ham? Food standards improved, People started reading ingredients lists, and what they found in meat paste jars didn't always inspire confidence. Today, meat paste still exists, tucked away in supermarkets near the sandwich fillings, but nobody under 50 eats it unless they're feeling deeply nostalgic. It's a relic of a Britain where convenience and shelf life mattered more than knowing exactly what you were eating.
Number 10. Reconstituted orange juice.
Before fresh orange juice became standard, before every supermarket sold cartons of not-from-concentrate, British families drank something quite different. Reconstituted orange juice from powder, mixed with water, served in a special jug at Sunday dinner. The powder came in tins, usually from brands like Kiora or PLJ. You'd spoon it out, mix it with cold water, and attempt to recreate something resembling orange juice. The result was sweet, vaguely citrus-flavored, and bore only passing resemblance to actual oranges. But here's the thing. Fresh orange juice was expensive. Actual oranges were Christmas treats, special occasion fruit, so this powdered substitute became the standard. Kids grew up thinking this was what orange juice tasted like. When they finally tried the real thing, it must have been revelatory. The ritual of making it was part of Sunday dinner preparations. Mom would mix up a jug, put it in the fridge if you had one, and serve it in those small tumblers everyone had. It was special, a step above water, cheaper than squash. As the 1970s arrived, frozen concentrate appeared. Then fresh juice became affordable. Suddenly, the powder seemed pointless, a poor imitation of the real thing. The tins disappeared from shelves, and an entire generation stopped drinking what their parents thought was orange juice.
Number 11. Pilchards in tomato sauce. Saturday tea time, 1958. Your dad opens a tin of Pilchards, tips them onto toast, and calls it dinner. The fish come out whole, head still attached, swimming in red tomato sauce. Modern kids would run screaming. 1950s kids just ate it. Pilchards were sardines' bigger, cheaper cousin, tinned by the thousand, stacked in every corner shop. They provided omega-3s before anyone knew what omega-3s were. The preparation was simple. Open tin, heat if you could be bothered, eat. Sometimes you'd mash them up to hide the heads. Other times you'd just embrace the whole fish experience. The taste was strong, fishy, salty, with that metallic tang that tinned fish always has. The tomato sauce helped, softening the intensity. Some people loved them. Others tolerated them because protein was protein. Either way, they filled bellies and provided nutrients cheaply. But as living standards rose, Pilchards started seeming a bit desperate. Proper fish became affordable. Frozen fish fingers arrived, making fish palatable for kids without the confrontation of tiny fish heads staring at you from your toast. Pilchards began their slow decline. Today, you can still find tinned Pilchards, usually in the world foods aisle, next to things people only buy by accident. But as a regular tea time staple, dead. The sight of a whole fish in a tin now seems poverty-stricken. Even though they're actually quite nutritious, they've become a punchline, a symbol of post-war deprivation. Number 12. Cornish splits with clotted cream.
Cornwall had its splits, Devon had its scones, and the two counties fought over cream tea protocol like it was a matter of national security. But Cornish splits were different. These soft, white, slightly sweet bread rolls, split in half, filled with clotted cream and jam. Simple, delicious, and increasingly rare. In the 1950s and 60s, splits were everyday food in Cornwall. Bakers made them fresh, families ate them at tea time, and nobody thought they were special. They were just there, part of Cornish life, like tin mines and fishing boats. The bread was soft, slightly sweet, perfect for soaking up that rich clotted cream. You'd split them while still warm, slather on the cream, Cornish method, cream first, obviously. Add a dollop of jam, and that was tea time sorted. No fuss, no fancy china, just good, simple food. But tourism changed things. Cream teas became standardized, commercialized. Scones won the marketing battle. They looked more photogenic,
traveled better, and fitted tourist expectations better. Splits became increasingly hard to find outside Cornwall itself. Today, you might find Cornish splits in proper Cornish bakeries, the kind run by families who remember when splits were normal. But they've become a specialty, a tourist curiosity, rather than everyday food. Another small piece of regional food culture that slipped away. Number 13. Tinned stewing steak. This one's properly grim by modern standards. Tinned stewing steak was chunks of beef preserved in their own jelly, ready to tip into a casserole without ceremony. The tins sat in larders for months, always ready when you needed protein quickly. The appeal was obvious. No refrigeration needed, lasted forever, and provided meat when fresh meat was expensive or unavailable. You'd open the tin, scrape out the beef and its jelly, add vegetables and stock, and suddenly you had a stew. Working-class meal planning relied heavily on these tins. The meat itself was interesting. Gray-brown, soft, with that distinctive tinned meat texture. It tasted of beef, vaguely, mixed with metal and preservation. The jelly was congealed fat and gelatin, which melted during cooking and added body to your gravy. Not appetizing by modern standards, but it did the job. As freezers became affordable, fresh meat became accessible. Buying a week's worth of mince or stewing steak and freezing it made more sense than stockpiling tins. The taste was better. The texture was better. Tin stewing steak started looking increasingly desperate. Today, you'd struggle to find tin stewing steak anywhere. The whole concept seems medieval, like something from a time before refrigeration existed, yet thousands of British families relied on it weekly, and many remember it without horror. Different times, different standards. Number 14. Wall's Arctic Roll. Right, this one's controversial because Arctic Roll technically still exists, but the Arctic Roll of the 1950s and 60s was different, special, a proper treat. That swirl of sponge cake wrapped around vanilla ice cream, served at birthday parties and Sunday dinners, made people's eyes light up. You'd buy it from the ice cream man or from shops, a long rectangular block wrapped in paper. Mom would slice it carefully, trying to keep the ice cream from melting too fast. Each slice showed that perfect spiral, cake and ice cream in harmony. Kids would eat the ice cream first, then the cake, or cake first, then ice cream. There were factions. The genius was its simplicity. Sponge cake and ice cream. That's it. No fancy flavors, no chocolate chips, no caramel drizzle, just cake and ice cream, perfectly balanced. It was affordable luxury, special occasion food that didn't break the bank. But tastes changed. Fancier ice cream desserts arrived. Viennetta, sundaes, Magnum bars. Arctic rolls started seeming basic, a bit boring. The modern version still exists, but it's a shadow of its former glory. Smaller, less prominent, bought more for nostalgia than genuine desire. The 1950s-60s Arctic roll represented something, the democratization of treats. Ice cream desserts for everyone, not just the wealthy. That version, that feeling, has vanished even if the product technically survives. Number 15. Sterilized milk. Before UHT milk conquered Britain, before every fridge contained fresh milk that lasted a week, there was sterilized milk, delivered in those distinctive bottles with crown caps. It had been heated to within an inch of its life, killing everything and altering its taste forever. The taste was distinctive, slightly sweet, slightly cooked, not quite like fresh milk. Some people loved it. Others tolerated it because it lasted longer than fresh milk without refrigeration. In the days before every household had a reliable fridge, sterilized milk made sense. Milkmen delivered it alongside fresh milk, and families chose based on their circumstances. Got a fridge? Fresh milk. No fridge or want milk that lasts? Sterilized. It was practical, reliable, and filled the gap between fresh milk that went off quickly and powdered milk that nobody really wanted. But refrigeration became universal. Fresh milk became the standard, and sterilized milk started tasting increasingly odd, unnecessary. Why drink cooked-tasting milk when fresh milk could last nearly as long in your fridge? The logic disappeared, and so did sterilized milk. Today, sterilized milk has been completely replaced by UHT, which tastes better and keeps even longer. An entire delivery system, complete with those distinctive bottles, has vanished. Another small piece of daily British life that's completely gone.
Number 16. Potted meat. Potted meat was the preserve of grandmothers and great-aunts, made in small earthenware pots and stored in the larder for emergencies. You take cooked meat, mince it finely, mix it with butter, seasoning, and spices, pack it into small pots, and seal it with more butter. Done right, it lasted weeks. The tradition went back centuries, born from a need to preserve meat before refrigeration. By the 1950s and 60s, it was still common in traditional households. Your nan would make potted beef, potted ham, even potted tongue. The small pots would line her larder shelves like soldier. The taste was concentrated, rich, intensely meaty. You'd spread it thinly on toast or crackers, letting that butter and meat combination coat your mouth. Some people ate it at tea time, others served it at buffets. It was proper old-school British food, the kind that required skill and patience. But convenience foods killed it. Why spend hours making potted meat when you could buy pâté from the supermarket? Why preserve meat when freezers existed? Younger generations never learned the technique. The tradition simply stopped being passed down. Today, potted meat exists mainly in cookery books and heritage food articles. A handful of traditional cooks still make it, but it's a curiosity, not everyday food. The skill, the knowledge, the entire tradition has nearly vanished.
Number 17. Tinned ham. Christmas, 1960. The centerpiece of the buffet isn't turkey, it's a massive tinned ham, pressed into its distinctive shape, covered in breadcrumbs or honey glaze. Opening the tin was a ceremony, requiring a special key that wound around the tin's edge. Get it wrong, and you'd be picking metal shards from your ham. Tinned ham was special occasion food. It cost more than regular ham, came in impressive tins, and had that peculiar pressed texture that tinned ham is famous for. Sliced thin, it fed a crowd. Surrounded by salad and pickles, it looked festive. The taste was salty, porky, with that slight metallic note that tinned food always had. The texture was firm, slightly rubbery, completely uniform. Some pieces had jelly adhered to them, which you either scraped off or embraced, depending on your upbringing. But fresh ham became affordable and accessible. Supermarkets started selling proper joints of cooked ham that tasted better, looked better, and didn't require wrestling with a tin opener. The romance of tinned ham couldn't compete with the reality of fresh ham. Today, tinned ham exists mainly in discount shops and as emergency rations. The special occasion status has completely vanished. It's become poverty food, the thing you buy when you can't afford proper ham. The massive Christmas tins, the ceremony of opening them, all gone. Number 18. Evaporated milk on everything. Before cream became affordable, before every supermarket sold double cream and creme fraiche, British families had evaporated milk. That thick, slightly sweet, slightly caramelized tinned milk that went on absolutely everything. Fruit cocktail? Evaporated milk. Apple pie? Evaporated milk. Stewed rhubarb? You guessed it. The taste was distinctive. Richer than regular milk, but not quite cream. The consistency was thick, coating your spoon, and the sweetness from the natural concentration of milk sugars made everything taste a bit special. It was affordable luxury, turning simple puddings into treats. Families kept several tins in the larder, always ready. You'd pierce 2 holes in the top, pour out what you needed, then store it in the fridge. Some households went through multiple tins per week, using it as their default pudding accompaniment. But cream became affordable. Suddenly, evaporated milk seemed sad, a poor substitute for the real thing.
Nutritional advice changed, with cream becoming either demonized or celebrated, depending on which decade you were in. Evaporated milk became unfashionable. Today, it still exists, mainly used in Asian cooking, or by people who remember the old days. But as a standard pudding topping, dead. An entire generation has grown up never experiencing that distinctive taste on their apple crumble. Number 19. Bird's custard powder. Wait, Bird's custard powder still exists? True, but the way it was used in the 1950s-60s has completely vanished. This wasn't just occasional custard. This was custard with everything. Made from scratch using powder and milk, appearing at every dinner that included pudding. Your mom would make a jug of custard every Sunday. Thick, yellow, properly smooth custard that coated the back of a spoon. It went on apple pie, bread pudding, jam roly-poly, spotted dick, and any other pudding you can imagine. Custard was as essential as gravy. The ritual of making it was passed down through generations. Heat the milk, don't let it boil, mix the powder with a bit of cold milk first, stir constantly. Getting lumpy custard was shameful. Proof you weren't paying attention. Good custard meant you were a proper cook. But ready-made custard arrived in carton. Suddenly making custard from scratch seemed pointless, time-consuming. Younger people stopped learning. The skill wasn't passed down, and the tradition of fresh custard with every pudding faded away. Today, most people buy ready-made custard or use instant powder that's ready in seconds. The hour-long process of making proper custard, stirring carefully while other food cooked, has become a novelty. That particular domestic rhythm has vanished completely. Number 20. Lard pastry. Here's the big one, the foundation of 1950s-60s British baking. Lard pastry. Everything was made with lard. Pies, pasties, tarts, sausage rolls. That pure white block of pork fat was essential to every baker's larder. The pastry it created was short, flaky, and tasted distinctively of pork. Making lard pastry was a skill. You rubbed cold lard into flour until it resembled breadcrumbs, added just enough water, handled it gently. Done right, it produced pastry that shattered when you bit it, layers of fat and flour that melted on your tongue. Every housewife had her own technique. The taste was unmistakable. You couldn't make mince pies, pork pies, or apple tarts taste the same without lard. Butter pastry tasted different, richer but less crisp. Margarine pastry was acceptable but inferior. Lard was the standard. But health advice changed everything. Saturated fat became the enemy. Lard, being pure animal fat, became practically poisonous in public perception. Butter made a comeback as natural. Vegetable fats were marketed as healthy alternative. Lard became old-fashioned, even slightly shameful. Today, most British homes don't have lard. Young bakers have never used it. The pastry that defined British baking for centuries has been replaced by butter or ready-made pastry. An entire taste, texture, and tradition has vanished within 2 generations. The 1950s-60s pastry, made with lard, tasting of pork, shattering in your mouth, is completely gone. You can recreate it technically, but the cultural context, the universality of it, that's vanished forever. These 20 foods tell the story of a Britain that's completely disappeared. A Britain where waste was sinful, convenience was luxury, and knowing how to make lard pastry was essential knowledge. Some of these foods vanished because they were genuinely grim. Others because the world moved on and they couldn't compete. But here's the thing, they weren't just food. They were part of daily life, family rituals, childhood memories. The taste of tinned fruit cocktail is the taste of Sunday tea. The smell of Spam fritters is Friday night. The wobble of Brawn is your nan's kitchen. These foods shaped people, fed millions, got Britain through difficult times. They deserve to be remembered, even if nobody wants to eat them anymore. They're part of our history, as British as rationing, the Blitz, and rebuilding. Which of these surprised you the most? Did your family eat any of them? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your memories and stories. If you enjoyed this journey through Britain's culinary past, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more forgotten British food history, traditional preservation methods, and household wisdom to explore. Because understanding where we've been helps us appreciate where we are. Even if where we've been involved eating jellied eels and condensed milk sandwiches.